Hello, 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 everyone. How are you? Hope you're having an incredible, incredible day, and may peace be upon you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for watching my show. Yes, I can, with me, your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil. And today I have the fabulous, the trailblazer, the inspirational Dawn Pitt, who is an activist and also kind of like a nomad traveling. So Dawn, darling, come and say hello.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me here today.
And Dawn, at the moment, she is in the middle of the jungle in Costa Rica, if I remember correctly, all the way in the jungle.
That's right.
Literally got candles burning in front of her to give her the light, and everything is being powered by solar at the moment. Dawn has worked in, her passion is about giving women the voice is some voice, like the voice and fighting for them. So Dawn, kind of like shed, first of all, what is it like in Costa Rica?
Hot and humid. It's beautiful. I arrived about nearly a month ago. And so far I've been swimming with stingrays and jellyfish, diving, kayaking in mangroves, being bitten by mosquitoes.
Oh my
God. It's very beautiful here.
What an adventure. It was beautiful. It's an adventure. It's like a tropical country, isn't it? My daughter Nadra, who's 7, yesterday was just like, Mommy, why are all these mosquitoes biting me? And I'm like, whoa, what can I say? I grew up in Malaysia, so I'm used to mosquitoes, like I'm immune to it. And Dawn, originally you're from England, correct?
In this lifetime, yes, I'm from England.
From England, and that was where you were born, but there was a moment, a turning point in your life where you make a decision that you choose to not live in England anymore, and you choose to be a nomad or to do hijra or traveling to various places. So can you share a little bit about what was the turning point? And you have children as well, so what was the turning point in you kind of like making that decision?
Okay, well, back in 1996, I met my now ex-husband, Omar, and he was Egyptian Palestinian. Well, he still is Egyptian Palestinian. Yes. And I'd said to him, if we are going to get engaged and get married and have children together, we are going to go and live out in Egypt, because we couldn't have access to Palestine, and we're both activists, as you've said. So us going to Palestine probably wouldn't have been a very wise move. Yes. Probably a bit too outspoken for a lot of people. And so when the boys, Khalid and Nasser, they were, because I call myself Khalid, when Khalid was 7, we moved out to Egypt, and we lived through the Egyptian uprising, and there I was in Tahrir Square protesting with them. And I said to my mum, who saw me on CNN, excuse me, and she said, what are you doing in Tahrir Square? And I'm like, Mum, if I want my human rights recognized, I have to help other people have theirs, otherwise none of us have them. We lived through that. We lived through the Rabaa massacre. And then when Sisi came into power, I was like, okay, it's game over. We're going back. Excuse me 1 second. You're going to have to edit that out. I think I've just followed a mosquito and I'm a vegan. And so I went back to England, and the level of, well, let's just say England was no longer my place. I couldn't stand it in England. And I said and I remember being in a bath one night listening to a podcast, and there was just something in there. I ended up on my knees crying my eyes out. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot be in England anymore. I need to go and live at sea. And I'd said to my mum when I was 8 years old, I would live at sea. And then I met, my ex-husband, who was from Cairo, city boy. He's probably more English than I am, and I'm probably more Arabic than he is. And then 5 years ago, after some really serious trauma, which I wrote about in books 3 and 4, and the first book, Moana, in the sequel series. And after living through the Egyptian uprising, which I wrote about in my second book, Wallahi, I said to the boys, I need to go. Let's go to New Zealand for 5 weeks. Let's see how it, like, then you'll fly back to the UK by yourself. They were 11 and 15. I had a return flight ticket and I've never been back. And to live, I went to visit. I gave my boys 2 surprise visits. The first time I found it quite suffocating being back in the UK. The second time I went back, I made it. I only lasted a week. I just can't be in England anymore. It's just not my space. After living out in the Arab world and now having lived in Latin America for the last 3 years, traveling around from the south of Chile all the way up to, well, I've done Chile, Patagonia, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Panama, and now I'm in Costa Rica, and that's all since December 2019. So you can still travel even during a pandemic.
Yes, and that is like such a extraordinary move, extraordinary journey, because you're here on your own. Like, you know, it's just you traveling while your children and your ex-husband Omar is still in England. So kind of like traveling as a woman. And what does it look like for you? Do you plan every single thing, or do you, like, you know, kind of like have the calling for you to go to the next place or the next place, because your vision, your dream was to live in the sea? So what is it like? It is scary, Dawn. It's so scary to travel to other places, and to places you don't know, people you've never met before, places you've never been before, and then to do it on your own. So tell us more about that.
I don't see it as scary because I don't believe in the media. I don't believe in mainstream media's narrative that people from different countries, faith, ethnicities, or cultures are scary people. They're just human beings, just like we are. And I think when I believe that when you actually just see people for people, and you let go of all the negative fear mongering that goes on in the world, then you just know that it's just a different place in the world. It's almost like you've gone from a different town in your country to a different town or a city. And it's only when we believe the mainstream narratives or the government agendas that want us to be divided upon our faiths or our ethnicities or our nation cultures that we actually have a fear of other people. And as a single woman traveling around the world, I have never had any problems. I have found that when I have had challenges and I've just asked a local person, whether it's male or female, everybody comes out to help you. And subhanAllah, it's absolutely beautiful that people would do that. But that's the thing. Part of the series of books that I'm writing at the moment, the Mermaid's Guide series, is to actually dispel a lot of the myths that we have about different people around the world. Now, I sail across the world. I don't fly. When I cross an ocean, I mean, I prefer to be out at sea with the nearest land beneath me rather than in front of me or behind me. I do love the tranquility of the ocean. I love the quiet. I have been caught up in storms, and my front teeth are not mine. They are actually replacements, because my teeth I lost them in a storm and hit the deck and went overboard. So but yeah. Wow, but women have got a pair of ovaries, and we're very strong and we're very capable. And it's only when we martyr ourselves and we stop believing in ourselves and our capabilities. Because when you consider Izdihar, how subhanAllah, Allah has created us in such a beautiful way that we can conceive and grow life within our bodies, and then we can give birth. If we can do that, we can do anything. And it's only society, a lot of religions, a lot of cultures that tell us that we can't do that. Now, as you and I spoke before we came on air, two of my biggest role models within the Islamic world are Khadija and Aisha. And I didn't want to say Aisha because it's not the Arabic way of saying it. It's Aisha.
Yes, with
Yes, I'm very fussy about the way Arabic words are spoken, especially my children's names. Because we know that Khadija was a businesswoman. She was the one that asked the Prophet, peace be upon him, to marry her. And she was older than him. And
Yes.
Aisha was a scholar. She was there teaching the Quraysh, which were predominantly men. And so one of the things when I lived my life as a Muslim, before I walked away from religion and just embraced that faith, and embraced all the faiths, was that we are incredible, whether we're male or female. And the only thing stopping us is ourselves and what we're choosing to believe. Now, if we really chose to believe that we are incredible and Allah knows exactly what he is doing when he made us, and we actually, whether you call the higher source God, universe, Allah, source, whatever it is, whatever that is, if you truly believe that he made us perfectly and made us strong and courageous, then there would be nothing stopping you.
Absolutely. And it is this preconception, right, that people have, whether it's because of the media or because of, like differences. It is the preconception, like you said, once you kind of let go the connotation, the preconception, then you start to see and connect with someone as a person who has this particular values, who are their heart, their kindness, their vision, and everything else. I feel like you kind of build a bridge between you and them, especially if you're white skinned. So if you're in Costa America, you look a little bit different than the locals, but
I'm a redhead, so I look very different.
very different than, the rest of the people there. But do you feel that once you kind of let go of all of that, the preconception, the connotation, the judgment, you start to build a bridge? And you mentioned earlier, once you ask for help, all these people come because they start to see, hang on a minute, this is another human being, this is another sister, this is another mother that can help.
They don't even get into that. That's all stuff that we put in the way. When I need help, do you know where to get this? And then this gentleman will ask me, okay, well I don't, and then he'll call someone else over, and then that person will call someone else over. And if they don't know, they'll find a way of helping me. And I don't think that I don't think it's because I'm white or gringo, as we're known here in Latin America. And I don't believe that it's because of my woman. I just believe it's because people are genuinely great people. People are genuinely intrinsically good. And I remember I was sat in a sauna when I lived back in England, and there was a gentleman in there who was from Pakistan. We were discussing something, and I can't remember what it was, but he was making he'd made a judgment about something, and then I turned around and said to him, I said, well, if you're going to use that logic, then I should not be safe in here as a woman with a man, but I also should not be safe here because you've got a brown face. All you're doing is listening to the media. Get rid of that. Get rid of what the media tells you, because remember, it's called television for a reason, because it's telling you a vision that they want you to believe. Once you get rid of that and you start seeing beyond that, let's take you, for example, you're wearing hijab.
Yeah.
Now, when people understand what hijab means, all it means is to block. So the wall behind you is hijab. The curtain is hijab. The door is hijab, because it's blocking my view of what is beyond that. And when we have these prejudices, that is hijab. So whether it's a cloth on our heads or whether it's a prejudice we all have hijab. The fact that we wear our clothing, like a lady will wear a nice dress to go out in, or she'll be wearing a bikini, it's still hijab because her boobs and her private parts, they're also covered. Now, it may not be Islamic hijab, but when you understand Arabic and you understand the meaning of the words and the powers of the word, you can actually get beyond and see a human being, like you said. Am I going to dislike you because you wear glasses? Are you going to dislike me because I'm a redhead?
Right.
It's just ridiculous. I could dye my hair tomorrow and I could be dark. I could put different color contact lenses in. you know, and have a different color eyes. You know, I could sit out in the sun and I'd probably turn bright red. But I don't think
lobster pink, you like it? That would be like the turning point of it. And you kind of like touch a point about, you know, understanding the Arabic language. You know, there's a lot of people out there who reads the Quran or reads the Arabic but doesn't understand the Arabic, because the Arabic word is so beautiful and also complex. One thing would change the whole meaning.
Absolutely. My name, for example, in Arabic is Fajr, like the prayer, because my name is Dawn. But if you said Fajr, that would mean whore.
Yes, one syllable, one letter, one, you know, kind of would mean like a whole lot difference. And I feel that in society now, Dawn, people are taking things out of context. They don't understand the Arabic
Don't even
language.
Get me started on that one. We need another episode or a whole series.
The whole theory of that. Yes, I mean, obviously not everybody has the opportunity to learn Arabic, so they have to read the translated version of it. But I do feel in the sense that kind of like clarifying that things can be taken out of context and out of proportion. Just like you mentioned, just one letter makes a whole difference in there's a feminine, that's masculine version, that's the past.
And the vowels, whether you're talking about the kasafata or the dhamma, you know, like it would just completely change it.
Yeah, the longer version, the shorter version changes the whole context of it. And I just wanted people to understand that this is what's happening with the Arabic language, and people who don't understand rely on people who do understand, and people who do understand can't and become an opportunist. And there's several ayah, they can just take the top part and then take the end part of certain sentence and make it together. So kind of in your experience, because you grew up, you lived in Egypt with the uprising and everything. How did that kind of like open up your eyes to justice, to like fighting for the people who couldn't fight for the voice?
Well, I've been an activist since I was a very little girl, apparently. My mother told me.
So it wasn't just started like 5 years ago.
No. I've always been someone who defends the bullied or stands up to the bullies. Even when I was in primary school, you know, from the age of 5 years old and upwards. I've never liked bullies. And I've always believed that, like I said at the top of the show, that if I want my human rights recognized, then I have to help other people have theirs recognized. Otherwise, I don't have any. Because if one person doesn't have their rights, none of us do. And we can live in this dream and we can live in this pretense and think that we're all free and liberated, but we're actually not, because we're not, our minds are not free. Okay. And so living in Egypt was an opportunity for me. I mean, you mentioned me being a bridge earlier. One of the reasons why I wrote my first book, Friday Bridge, was because I used to go out raving, and we used to go out raving on a Friday night. And then I swapped that for Friday prayers. And I have always felt that I was a bridge from the east to the west, from Islam and non-Islam, Muslims and non-Muslims. And, you know, and I've always been a geek. So I've always read lots and lots of books. And if I don't understand something, like, for example, you mentioned the Arabic. When I first started studying Islam, I'd never met a Muslim. I actually learned about Islam. No, I didn't know.
That.
This is one of the reasons why I wrote my first book. And this is the thing, you have just fallen into the trap that lots of people have done, because they think because I'm white that I met a Muslim, predominantly my husband, and that's when I became a Muslim. But I'd actually chosen to be a Muslim at the age of 15, and I'd not met my ex-husband until I was 18.
Right.
So he was my first Muslim that I'd ever met. I did my own research because I was interested in religion. And one of the things that we have in the world is a lot of people, like you were saying, they manipulate the teachings of Islam. They manipulate, they take, like you say, an ayah, which is, as we know, a paragraph from a chapter, which is a surah. and they manipulate it. And when you see how the West have manipulated the fact that, oh, well, women are allowed to be beaten by their husbands,
Right.
and it's like, no, they're not, because what you've got to understand, what people have to understand, and but taking things out of context, is where it says that there's a strike through, that doesn't mean that a man is allowed to strike his wife. What it means is they're putting a strike through the legal marriage document. If they haven't been able to resolve their issues by living apart or by sleeping apart or by having mediation. So it's a strike through the marriage contract rather than the man striking his wife.
Physically.
And this is what we've seen. And when people are espousing any religion or any kind of narrative or any kind of subject, if they do not understand the language of the book that they're reading, whether it is even, like, for example, if I'm reading a book in English, I'm doing my Ph.D. at the moment, working towards my Ph.D. in international law and social justice. Now, I understand all the words in the sentence,
right,
and it's all written in English. But some of those sentences with all of those words together, I'm like, what? Hang on, I've just got to go read that again. Because it's I'm like, I understand that, but I don't understand a word that just said. I've got to, and I sometimes have to read the sentences over and over again. And it's not because I'm stupid, it's not because I'm ignorant, it's just because it's being put into a new context or a new framework, or there's a word, or the juxtaposition of all the words in the sentences make it a much deeper, much stronger narrative. So when you have people that are following a faith, or you have people that are following something, and then they're espousing it, but they don't understand the language or the context, they're doing more harm than good.
Correct.
Now, to bring it back, I don't know how much of your audience is Islamic, but even when we look at the 4 imams, each and every single one of them said, do not write down what I say. Do not follow me. Follow the word of Quran, because what I know today may change tomorrow. So if you're following me and you're writing down what I know, then you're following old information. We're all living, breathing, evolving creatures and entities. We're all connected. And whether it's, you're learning a new subject, like you go into law, or you go into IT, or you go into like the kitchen and you start to want to be a chef, or you're learning new vocabulary all the time. And it's essential that we understand what we're talking about. You've got people at the moment talking about, biology and viruses and, how things spread. You've also got people thinking that they're a war correspondent. And like, if you don't know something, put your hand up and say, actually, I don't know what I'm talking about. So I'd rather sit this one out, or please tell me. I love admitting I'm wrong, Izdihar, because it means I've learned something new. There are not many women that you will meet that will say, I like being wrong, but I am one of them.
That is absolutely the truth of it, because it's hard just to have put your hand up, on many things, right? But I wanted to kind of touch base with your journey, because you said that you've always been curious about religion, or you always had that inclination about religion, and that was something that you have been researching yourself since you were a young age. I just wanted to share with us, what was it like, that curiosity of yours, and then you also had not just the curiosity but the courage for you to be like, you know what, this feels this, and I'm going to explore this, because what happens a lot of the time is that they're so in the box, right? So they're so in the box, they don't look left or right, they're so in the box. So kind of like share that, the 15-year-old Dawn, who's just, or maybe you were still younger than 15-year-old, to when you had that kind of like desire or exploration or curiosity to do the search.
Well, my grandparents went to church in their Sunday best every Sunday. My mum and dad, we were never allowed to discuss religion, so I still don't even know to this day whether my parents believe in God or not. I was one of those children that used to hide underneath my sheet with a torch, which was obviously not going to work because my parents would have seen the torch through the bed sheet. The innocence of children. And I would be there. I would be reading the book of Psalms. I'd be reading the Bible. I'd be questioning it. And then I saw that the only people that actually followed religion or spoke of God were either really rich and wealthy people, middle-class people, or old people. And I was like, well, I don't fit into any of those. So, I need to know what all this is about. And like I said, I'm curious. I love learning. And one of the things that made me want to become a Muslim was when I was 15 years old, we went on a school trip to learn about the different pilgrimages that different faiths go on. And I remember sitting there, and it's all described in my book, Friday Bridge, which is my first book. It was a subtitle is Becoming a Muslim, Becoming Everybody's Business. Basically that talks about my life as a raver, as somebody who grew up in the farming community in quite a racist area, and what it was like becoming a Muslim, meeting a foreigner, and all of the prejudices that went with that. And I remember sitting there and we were watching this video about the different pilgrimages, and so we were there and we were watching this Hajj on this big screen, and I remember seeing everybody dressed in white, and the narrator saying one of the reasons why everybody who goes on Hajj wears the same cloth, it's tied, it's cut in the same way, it's tied in, it's because everybody is equal in the eyes of God. And one of the other things I loved about Islam was that it was between you and God. It wasn't between you and the imam, or you and the vicar, or you and the rabbi, or you and the whoever. It was between you and God. Correct. And in all the religions, because I went on to study theology, and I've studied Taoism and Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, and any other ism, which is just idea, right? Ism is just an idea.
Yes.
One of the reasons why I walked away from religion was, for me, it was like, well, all of them talk about very similar things. And when you look at the similarities between them, and then you look at the differences, and then you look at the body on a scientific level, like for example, in Hinduism, they talk about the third eye, and you go, oh, that's just really strange. And it's like, well, if I asked you to close your eyes and I narrated a story to you, where would you see that? You would see it here in your imagination, right? Right here at the front. Correct. So it's your third eye. So when I started looking at Taoism, and then the wind, earth, fire, and ocean, water, sorry, not ocean, but it is ocean, being a mermaid, and that's a Banksy mermaid, not a Disney mermaid. And it all started to make sense to me, and I was like, well, why would I choose one religion over another? If in the Quran it says that we're all equal, why would I then choose to say, well, I'm a Muslim, therefore I'm right, or if I'm a Christian, therefore I'm right, or I'm Hindu and therefore I'm right? We're just people. So I walked away from organized religion and just chose to take the beauty of all of them, and just be Dawn, rather than be a label for somebody else, for them to either find me acceptable or not. We've just had a little gust of wind, so
the candle gutted for that. Yes, I saw the flickering a little bit. So Dawn, you literally have like 4 candles in front of you, just lighting up, giving the glow, because it is actually late at night there. And
it's only actually 20 to 7.
Oh, really?
But again, I thought this is natural life. This is nature. This is how we're supposed to live. We're supposed to live by rise with the sun and go down with the moon. But to extend our lives and to cram as much in, and to buy all these material things, and to do as much as we can, and to stress ourselves out and increase the cortisol and the adrenaline, and have all these mental health problems and all of these weight issues and heart attacks. We try and cram in as much in our day, and we have as much technology around us as possible, so that we can stay connected. And I love it here because, and I love being out on the ocean because there's no Wi-Fi. We've got Wi-Fi at the moment, but it's all being run off solar power. But And when I go to all these different countries, I don't even buy a mobile phone number, like a SIM card. So when I'm not connected to Wi-Fi, I cannot access the internet on my phone, because I don't
Yeah,
want
so
to be
it's
connected to my phone. I want to be connected to nature.
and that's something about nature, is it? It's part of the whenever we go camping up in nature, it's always have that soothing effect on me, and I usually have the best sleep in nature, right? Mind you, it's
Mm-hmm.
like a tent, right? It's a tent. It's not the glam camp or anything. It's like a tent with like a sleeping bag on the ground, but I
Mm-hmm.
always have the best sleep in
You will
nature, like
do.
all of us usually do, even though it's so uncomfortable because there's no comfy mattress or nothing like that, right? But that is like the best place for me to kind of like experience the
So healing as
calmness.
well.
Yes, it's very healing and calming effect. I just wanted to touch base with you on one final point before we kind of like wrap it up, because you mentioned that you have two boys who are, I mean, they're older now. They're older who's
Yes, they
living with,
are.
they're older now, but a lot of women, whether they're working women or want to travel, they experience this, what I call the mommy guilt of, all their life is about the children and the husband. And then come to the time when it's like 20, 30 years, and then they'll be like, what happened to my life, right? Because by the time they're like in their 50s
Mhm.
or 60s. So kind of like, how did you overcome that, or how did you embrace that part of you that, look, I have to take care of me and go on this journey, and my kids are gonna be here?
Well, you call it mummy guilt, I call it mummy martyrdom. Um,
Yes.
and which comes from a lot of stress, jealousy, again, having to be or having to do or having to
Mhm.
have,
Mhm.
outdo another mother and be the most dutiful mother or the most provisionate mother or the biggest
Mhm.
mummy taxi driver or the bank of mummy and daddy. And this is the
Yeah.
thing, it's that, again, it brings it back to, who do we want to be? What kind of mother do we want to be? I want
Mhm.
my two young men, because they are young men now.
Yes. How old are they again, Dawn?
Well, Nasser is 15, and Khalid is 19. But again, because of, I mean, they are heads and shoulders above the children in their age group, because one, they've lived through an Egyptian uprising. Two, every decision that their father and I have ever had, that we've made within our business since they've been old enough, for the move to Egypt and things that we're going to do, every change in my business I make, even today, the boys are involved. When I became a school governor, I would say to the boys after the meeting, like over dinner, okay, this is what I've learned in the meeting tonight. This is what central government is sending down to your school. What do you think? We always had a family meeting. Every meal time would be the same. We would always have a family meal. There were no phones. In the mornings, we would play cards together before school and just chat. And my boys are in, I mean, they coach me, Izdihar, and I'm just like, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, they listened to me more than I thought they did. Like, why did they listen to that bit instead of the other bit? But they heard everything, trust me. And the thing is, it's like, for me, if I want to show my boys, or my young men, that women are more than just a womb to carry children, and I want them to respect women, then I have to respect myself. And if I want my boys to follow their own passion or their own purpose, then I have to show them how to do that. It's almost like, if I want them to dress themselves, I'm going to have to show them how to dress themselves. If I want to show them that what's truly possible, then I have to see what's truly possible for myself. And if I'm there, most adults these days, they don't even know what they want in their 40s and their 50s. So how can I expect my children to know exactly what they want? And I've said to them, boys, do you want to come with me, or do you want to stay with your dad? And it's interesting, because some people think that because their dad has custody of them, that I must have done something really bad to have lost custody. When in actual fact, my ex-husband and I, we're still very good friends. We parent better apart. And him giving me the divorce or asking for the divorce was the best thing he ever did to me, for me, other than give me children. We've both got each other's backs. I know that if ever I needed anything, I can just call on him, and he knows the same, because we're setting an example for our children. If we want them to be leaders of their own life, I have to be a leader of my own life. And I can't preach one thing and then do another. And we see this so many times. And when I used to do career coaching for a lot of the schools, because one of the things that your listeners don't know about me is that, yes, I am an author and an author coach and a publisher and a strategist, but I'm also a leadership coach. I've been a career coach. I'm a business coach. I've been helping businesses and women for the last 24 years take their life and business to the ultimate level that they can get to. And like I said, my boys have been with me from day one. I remember sitting on an expert panel when NASA was a few months old. I was stood at, I was asked to speak at an event. Khalid was my assistant, so he would carry all my papers and hand out the worksheets, and he would collect in all the feedback forms. And NASA was a newborn baby, so he was on my hip at one point. And then when I'm on the expert panel, I'm breastfeeding NASA whilst I'm answering questions. And this is going back, 15 years ago. And we're still discussing breastfeeding today. It's like, seriously, how slow do we have to be?
Which is interesting.
But I still get really upset, like there are times when, a couple of days ago I would cry because I missed them so much. I haven't seen Khalid in 3 years. I haven't seen NASA in over a year because of the pandemic and the restrictions on travel.
Right, that is so interesting what you're saying, and kind of what kind of leader do you want to be? What kind of mom you want? Like, how do you want your children to learn how to take care of women, or how women to be treated? Because I do feel like even in my own family, there are times when the entitlement with children, right? The entitlement that children have, or they wanting
but women
this
create
and this
that.
and this. Yeah, exactly. So the entitlement of that, kind of like the mom becomes like you said, the Uber driver, the dentist, the doctor, like the cook, the cleaner, which is, I feel like that is not the purpose of any mom
It's not healthy. It's not healthy.
Yes, mentally, physically, emotionally, it's not healthy
on any level. Because what the mothers are doing is they are avoiding who they are. It's almost like there's a codependency there. The mothers need the children to make themselves feel validated, and they're not willing to validate themselves in order to become the woman that they have the potential to be. And until we stop belittling it ourselves and saying that we need men to take care of us, or that we need to take care of our children, we are not raising children, we are raising adults. The children are already children. We are raising them into being responsible adults. And I did not want to raise 2 young men who would expect their wives to be their mother. I didn't want to raise, I wanted to raise men that I would be proud to actually, so for example, if like I look at all the characteristics that I would want in a man, and then I'd be like, okay, how can I enable, or not enable, because that's a very debilitating word, how can I guide these 2 human beings, because they don't belong to me, they belong to themselves. They're not my children, I am their mother. They are their own unique individual, their own unique experience. And if I think that I've got to raise them to take care of women, then I'm in one way suggesting that women can't take care of themselves, and we absolutely can.
Exactly.
And I wanted them to be men that could cook and clean. My children have been cooking and cleaning and doing their own laundry since they were 4 or 5 years old. because I knew that with their dad working away when we were married, my ex-husband, I mean, we've only been divorced 9 years. But while he was working away, I knew that if I was sick and the boys needed to have food or they needed clean clothes, they needed to know how to work the washing machine. They needed to know how to use the cooker and a knife carefully.
Correct.
And so I trained them how to do it. And they've been doing it. And now they're more capable than most men, 3 and 4 times their age.
Yeah, absolutely. I just absolutely love our conversation. It's kind of like we can go as deep as we want. We can even talk
we can
the
go
whole
on forever.
the whole night before the candle burns down and the solar runs out. But
I've already replaced one candle.
Yes, exactly. So, but thank you so much, Dawn, for your insights and kind of like sharing your voice, sharing your message, sharing your journey, your vision. Because you've gone through the uprising, you've gone through several regimes in the addictions phase. Even back in England, there were several things that happened as well. Even and now you're like, you're truly living like being the mermaid, like you did wanted to live on sea. Well, now you're on land, but you travel on sea.
Oh yeah, but the ocean's just there. Don't worry about it. I can hear the ocean from here. Don't worry. I'm not very far. Oh, I don't leave the ocean. If I can't see or hear the ocean, then I'm too far away from it.
Right, that is amazing. So Dawn, thank you so much for your insights, and just a quick kind of like share where are you going to go next after this, because I know we know where you are now, so where are you thinking are you going to go next?
I don't know. I might go to Nicaragua. I might jump on the sailboat and go to Guatemala, or go directly over to Cuba, or head up into Mexico. Thinking I might go into Nicaragua, but Costa Rica is my 39th country that I've lived and worked in, and I speak 5 languages, so I'm pretty much sorted for wherever I want to go. So
yes, English, Arabic, Spanish. What's the other 2?
Portuguese and Italian.
But yeah, that's right. And the only thing is Chinese, right? So if you go through that direction,
yeah, that's not a language I'm going to be speaking anytime soon. I speak a little bit of French and I understand German, and I know the odd word in Dutch, but I wouldn't say I speak any of those 3 European languages. But yeah, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, English and Arabic are my strongest languages. But I'm actually studying Spanish at the moment, ready to have me doing a lot of work with the Latino Chambers of Commerce, because having lived here in Latin America for 3 years, it's time for me to share with the Spanish, Latino, Hispanic community what I've learned about their continent, and really connect on a deeper level with them. So yes, I will be fluent in Spanish to a very high degree very soon.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much, Dawn, for your time.
You're very welcome.
And I hope that you have a great evening, and then the next journey. Keep us posted on your next journey. Thank you everyone for listening and watching. This is your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil. Until the next episode, tell yourself, yes, I can. And so it is done.